Story of the Mill, the Tray and the Stick. There was a logger who lived with his wife and 7 daughters in a village on the edge of the forest. He worked very hard but was still poor. 5 months passed. Once while chopping wood he saw a black man standing right in front of him. He asks, "Why do you chop my wood every day?" The logger replied, "Sir, I have to support my wife and 7 daughters. I can only cut down trees and sell them for money to make a living. If I don and number 39, do that, my family and I will starve to death." When the black man heard that, he felt pity and said, "I will give you a coffee. It will provide food and sustenance for you. But you can never come here again." The woodcutter was happy, hugged and thanked the black man. He quickly packed up his tools, took them and went home. Along the way, he felt hungry so he tried the mortar. He put the mortar on the ground and said, "Hey mortar, please give me meat, rice and beans." After speaking, he closed his eyes. When he opened them, he saw what he asked for right in front of him. He sat down, had a full meal and then happily went home. Returning home, he happily told his wife and children about the black people and the magical gift. The whole family thanked God for blessing them. They immediately ordered a hearty meal and the whole family happily ate. They lived in happiness like that for about a week. Next to their family, there is a neighbor who often comes to visit. A week had passed since the woodcutter brought home the coffee grinder when the neighbor came to visit as usual. The eldest daughter boasted to the neighbor, "It and number 39's great, grandma, my dad doesn't and hash 39 have to cut firewood anymore. My house has a wonderful mortar. It makes whatever I want." The neighbor heard the girl say that and decided to get the mortar. One day she came to visit and her youngest daughter was at home. She immediately asked the girl to borrow the mortar. She said she wanted to grind a little but didn't and hash 39 have a mortar. She also promised to return the mortar after 3 hours. The girl honestly lent the mortar to her. Of course, the neighbor later gave the girl back a normal mill that was exactly like her family and number 39's coffee grinder. In the evening, the father returned and spoke to the mill as usual. "But it and number 39's strange, the mortar doesn't and hash 39 move and doesn't and hash 39 reveal anything." The daughter quickly told the story of her neighbor and number 39's visit. The father knew the story and gave the girl a good beating. That night they had to eat leftovers from the previous meal. The next day the woodcutter picked up his tools and went into the forest to cut down trees. He had just cut down the first tree when the black man appeared the other day and questioned him. "I gave you a wonderful mill and asked you not to come here anymore. Why Don and number 39 you listen to me?" The woodcutter cried, "Sir, my stupid daughter lent her neighbor the mortar and she switched it so I have to go cut down trees again." The black man thought for a moment and then said, "I will give you another chance. Here is the magical tray. It will give you the money you want. But I forbid you to ever come here to cut trees again." The woodcutter was so happy that he got it. Along the way back, he brought out the tray and said, dear tray, give me money." Immediately gold and silver coins flew out. When he got home, he immediately told his wife and children about this second lucky opportunity. They again thanked God for blessing them. This time the woodcutter was more careful. He forbade his wife and children to lend this tray to any neighbor. A week of them living in happiness passed, and the neighbor came back as usual. That day the father was not home. That cunning woman cleverly lured his wife and daughters into a fascinating story. You know how women often like to gossip. And would you believe it, when she left, the neighbor held the woodcutter and number 39's tray in her hand. When his father came home, he was so angry that he thought he would die. He shouted loudly, "A woman stepped on your head and you were so dazed that you didn't and #39 know anything. What a bunch of useless people." The wife and daughters were beaten severely because they deserved it. The next day the woodcutter brought his tools into the forest again. He had just cut down the first tree when the black man appeared. The woodcutter told him everything that had happened. The black man said, "I gave you 2 lucky chances but you didn't and #39 know how to keep them. This time I give you your last chance. I give you a stick. If you let it near someone who is not wearing clothes, it will beat that person until that person says enough and quat. First let him beat you, then your wife and children, and finally that neighbor." The woodcutter returned home, took off his clothes and the stick beat him until he said enough and quat, and the stick stopped. Then he said to his wife and daughters, "Today I have something for you and your mother. It is a magical stick. It will give us miracles." One by one, starting with your mother, she took off her clothes and went into the other room. The mother and daughters thought they were as happy as before when he brought home the magical gift. One by one they entered the room and took off their clothes. They all received a good beating until the father said the stick was enough. The next day the neighbor came to visit again and asked as always, and quat, "Is there anything new?" And quat, "Of course she heard about a wonderful stick. When she left, she didn't and #39 forget to borrow the stick." A few days passed and the neighbor did not come back. So the woodcutter and number 39's family came to see what happened. They had to push the door to get into the house. They saw the neighbor and number 39's body lying on the floor. They realized that the neighbor did not know how to use a stick, so she was beaten to death. Of course they also found their coffee grinder and magic tray and brought them home. From then on they lived happily and happily. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.